Hello, my name is Zach Cooper, and I will be performing my second speech for my communications course, where we're to find a couple websites that reference material we've already covered in the course and kind of delve into that and what we've learned from it and what the website can add to that. So, the first article that I would like to go over is The Principle of Employee Empowerment and Its Advantages by George Root. The biggest thing that you can take away from this article is that he references empowerment, which was a big thing we covered in the class, especially towards the beginning. Um, it's a pretty small article, but it hits some major points that I feel like we really covered hardcore in the class. Some of the things being like it saves money, because if an employee is empowered, he references, they're going to make more choices on their own and they're not going to need as much supervision or make as many mistakes necessarily. So it saves the company money because it innovates and increases their ability to work without having to increase costs to that. Increases morale because it feels like the company has more trust in them and that they can do things on their own and they don't have to be micromanaged constantly, which makes them happier, so they feel happier to work for the company. It improves manager-employee relationships, which is something we talk about in more than just empowerment, but in like functional maturity and just workplace communication, because it allows the manager to be seen more as a peer instead of a supervisor, so you're more likely to come to them for help or to talk about some new idea you have and not feel like you're going to be judged or set back a lot from it. And then it creates a direct accountability line. So if you give people more power over what their job is, then it's not a manager telling someone to do this, or it's not a group deciding to do this. You can pinpoint where the problems are coming from and try to fix it, or realize that it's something that needs to be taken care of and gotten rid of. So overall, the article is good to discuss empowerment and some functional maturity stuff. So the second article of three I picked is called "Getting the Best from Every Employee: Communication Techniques That Work" by Nadia Goodman, I believe. And some of the things that she tries to go through on this is a big reference to mentoring, to various manager techniques we cover in the book as far as communication between them and subordinates goes, and a big thing on functional maturity, helping them learn their role when they're early on in the job. And the third article will also dive into that a lot more. But let's get back to this. The big thing that they say to talk about in that is to enforce your expectations. Let it be known from day one what a person's job responsibilities are, how you expect them to do it, your dependability, when you'd expect things to be done, stuff like that. It's kind of redundant, but it helps the employee feel like they know what they need to be doing at their job, and if they mess up, they can be held accountable because they were actually told what they need to be told or what they need to know. Explain instructions thoroughly. Make sure that after you tell the employee what to do, you sit there and you watch them. You make sure they know what they're doing, and don't be afraid, or don't make them afraid to come to you if you need help or if you need to show them something again or something like that. That allows more open peer-to-peerness with your manager, like I was talking about earlier, which helps with functional maturity more. Pay attention to your workplace environment. If you don't facilitate an environment that allows people to grow and feel welcome and try new things, then it won't happen. And where you're the supervisor, you're ultimately in control of that. So you need to make sure people are talking about the right things, having the right attitudes, and that you're presenting the same thing to them. And then something we talked about in the book, actually, and it's in this article too, is to take an interest in the employee's life. Go beyond just your work relationship. Ask about their kids, their hobbies, what they do outside of work, and it creates more of a bond and kind of breaks down those barriers between the manager and subordinate relationship again. So like I said, covers mentoring, pretty hardcore there, and then some other manager techniques that can help with functional maturity. Now the last article that we're going to cover is called Adaptation of Employee on New Workplace. And this is by Elena Bechkova, I believe. It's a German name, so I can't pronounce that correctly. But it relates directly to functional maturity. It says that it basically lays out a procedure that you need to be very detailed with what you tell your customer, or what you tell your employee to do. Kind of referencing back to the previous article, you need to be very specific about what they're responsible for, what they get in trouble for, what they get praised for, when they can come to you for help, and try to make that as open as possible. Examples that they talk about in the article is one employee came to the job, had very promise, they thought he was going to do big things, but the hiring manager had left and didn't tell anyone about it or tell them about him coming in, so he had no desk set up, no one to talk to, had no idea where he was supposed to go, and he quit 2 days later and then never returned to the company, and he's doing very well with another company. So things like that can really hold an employee back from ever even getting started with your company. Some things they also talk about is it's crucial to allow time for the employee to adapt, which is something we talk about in functional maturity. If the employee doesn't have time to mesh with the culture and feel like they're part of it and learn all of the procedures and directions that they need to go before they actually start saying stuff and trying to empower themselves, then they're going to feel lost and they're probably going to quit and they're not going to want to stay with the company. So that's a big thing too. You want to make sure the employee has time to get used to this new environment. And one of the big things they do is they do a program called adaptation, which is tools to get an employee meshed into the culture. So some big things there about is giving the detailed instruction, introducing them to everyone on the office, your supervisors as well as their peers, and kind of breaking down those tensions for them so they are set up to become friends with these people and work efficiently with them. And then make sure they have the things. So for instance, like the desk and the paperwork and everything, make sure they have a place to work, make sure they know what they need to get their job done, and make sure they can get those tools when they need it. If they feel threatened or they feel like they can't get the things they need, they'll shut down on you and they won't want to try and progress with your job at all. So those things are very important, and I think that all ties back to the functional maturity of when you're new to your job. It's very important to be able to learn all the culture and the environment that you're in and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable and push forward from there. So overall, the 3 articles I feel like cover a lot of what we talked about in class, primarily through the functional maturity part of it, where coming into a company new, progressing, dealing with your manager, and eventually reaching true empowerment, which I covered at the beginning of this article. So overall, I think the sites will be beneficial to you and all the rest of the people in the class, and I hope you've enjoyed this semester.